This is your government video on the Articles of Confederation. This video is meant to be watched after you've completed your Articles of Confederation reading guide and after you and your small group have completed active learning number 3. So the first assignment was to read through the Articles of Confederation. Your reading guide had the HIP portion at the top, and then you were supposed to take annotation notes in the annotation pane on the right. This Articles of Confederation was pre-highlighted for you in order to draw attention to really important parts of the Articles. Now, the Articles of Confederation, of course, is the precursor to the Constitution, and it was the original founding document that governed our government. And it didn't really work out. We ended up having to get rid of it and write a new Constitution. So for active learning number 3, you're supposed to work with your small group to look through your Articles of Confederation notes and figure out the limitations of this document. Why didn't it work out? What was going on that we couldn't just alter it or add to it? Why did we have to completely scrap it and then start over with a brand new constitutional convention? Once you've done that, you're supposed to work with your group to explain the impacts of the list that you created. Once you're done with those 2 assignments, then we'll talk about some of the things you should definitely have in your notes from this reading and from this active learning. Some of the most important limitations of the Articles of Confederation is that there was no way for the centralized government, or what's called now a federal government, to have military power. Each individual state was allowed to create their own militia. The militia at the time was made up of citizens who used their own weapons, and then they could be called into service by the state government and would be paid back later for that service. But there was no federal military or police power at all. The second thing is that there were lots of good ideas in the federal government. The Constitutional Congress could come up with interesting ideas and laws, but there was no way for them to tax citizens to pay for those things. The way it's set up is that all 13 colony governments were in control of their own taxes, and they could voluntarily give some of their state tax money to the federal government in order to create or solve problems, but the federal government could not tax citizens separately. That means that although we might have needed some more federal government, there is no way for them to actually implement these laws or enforce them. Another main issue is that the Articles of Confederation required all 13 states to agree in order to make any changes to the Articles. This is very, very difficult. This is unanimous. So if they wanted to just amend the Articles of Confederation, to change it, to alter it, to add things to it, you needed all 13 states. That is, it just can't happen, which is one of the main reasons why they have to end up getting rid of the Articles completely and starting over with a completely new document. The Articles of Confederation at the very beginning used the language that this sets up a loose band of friendship between independent sovereign states. A loose band of friendship basically is stating that each state has its own powers. They can tax their citizens, they can create militias, they have their own courts and own laws, but there is no federal government to have power over the states. The states are a confederacy, which means that they will always have more power than the constitutional laws that were created under the Articles, or what the Continental Congress has. So they're basically saying we're friends, and if somebody attacks Massachusetts, then Virginia will come help. But remember, they're sovereign, so ultimately if the state government doesn't want to go help, they don't really have to, because you don't have to abide by this federal document.